Edward the Great. Edward the number 2 engine has the same blue paintwork as Thomas and is the same size as James. Edward can pull carriages and push trucks, and he often works as a back engine, pushing the other engines up hills. But Edward is rather old and he's not quite as strong as he used to be. Because of this, he sometimes feels a bit sad and left out of things. When the Duke and Duchess of Boxford came to Sodor, they travelled on their own train. The engine's name was Spencer, and he was big, sleek, silver, and fast. Very fast. When Spencer pulled into Knapford Station, his driver had some great news for him. "That was a really fast time," he said. "You've beaten Gordon's record." Spencer let out a whoosh of steam. "I'm not surprised," he said. "I'm faster than all the engines on Sodor put together." That made the Fat Controller's engines very cross indeed. "What a cheek!" said Gordon. "Spencer's just a big silver show-off." Spencer was going to take the Duke and Duchess to their holiday house, but the Fat Controller needed another engine to take their furniture. The engines all wanted the job. They wanted to race against Spencer. "Me, please, sir," said Thomas. "I'll do it," said James. "May I go?" said Gordon. You all have other important work to do," said the Fat Controller. "Edward, you can take the furniture." "Fancy sending an old back engine to do an express engine's job," said Gordon. "He'll lose the race and let us all down," said James. But Thomas and Percy spoke up for their old friend. Spencer is a much bigger engine than Edward," said Thomas, "but he's full of hot air. And a good old steamy can beat a pouty puffer any day," said Percy. But secretly, they weren't sure that Edward really could beat Spencer. Edward wobbled out of the station, slow and steady. "Will do my best, will do my best," he puffed, as Spencer glided past him. Whoosh! He was so fast and smooth. Soon Spencer had left Edward far, far behind. He laughed and said, "I think I've won the race already." By the time Edward chuffed to the junction at the bottom of Gordon's Hill, he was out of puff. The furniture was heavy, and pulling it was hard work for an old engine. But he huffed and puffed and got to the top of the hill at last. Whee! He was much faster going down the other side. When Spencer stopped for water, Edward caught up with him. He was still going slow and steady, just as he always did. "There you are," said Spencer. I thought you'd have given up by now." "No, not me," said Edward crossly, as he chuffed past Spencer. "I'm a Sodor engine, and Sodor engines never give up. Never!" When Spencer's tank was full, he roared past Edward again. "See you when you get there," he said. "If you ever get there." Edward took a deep breath and carried on. "I won't give up," he said. "I won't give up." When Spencer stopped at Crosby Station so that the Duke and Duchess could have tea, Edward caught up with him again. He wished he could stop for a rest, but the station master and porters had heard about the race, and they cheered him on. "Hooray for Edward!" they cried. "He's a fine old Sodor engine!" That made Edward feel better, so he picked up speed and steamed past Spencer. But at Dryall Station, Spencer zoomed past Edward again. "Fastest and best! Fastest and best!" Poor Edward could only watch as Spencer streaked off into the distance. The furniture felt heavier than ever, and for the first time, Edward thought he might have to give up. But when Spencer stopped so that the Duke could take some photographs, he closed his eyes and was soon fast asleep. Gordon thought Spencer was winning the race. "Edward is a waste of steam," he hissed. But when he saw how hard Edward was trying, he felt bad about what he'd said. "Good work, Edward," he said. "You're trying so hard. You're a credit to the railway. You really are." That made Edward feel much better, and he found some extra puff he didn't know he had. "I am going to do it," he said. "I am going to do it." When it was time for Spencer to set off again, his driver rang his bell. Ding! But nothing happened. Spencer was still fast asleep. He didn't hear the bell, and he didn't hear Edward. Ding! Ding! Spencer's driver rang the bell again, and again, and again, and at last his eyes opened. Spencer's eyes opened extra wide when he saw Edward ahead of him, chuffing towards the Duke and Duchess's house. "Nearly there," said Edward. "Nearly there." Spencer set off as fast as he could, but he had to slow down on a little branch line. "You're too heavy for the old tracks," his driver told him. Edward was first to reach the house. "I did it!" he gasped when he stopped outside. "I won!" Suddenly, his piston stopped aching and his axle stopped shaking. It was his happiest day. Now Edward knew what it felt like to be a really useful engine. And he even has a new name. He's Edward the Great.